Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. Today I thought I would talk to you and kind of share with you some thoughts that I have been having about Pan That Palette 2019. Now I know that I am a little bit early to be making any decisions about what palette I am going to pan for 2019, but I have some ideas. I've actually had some ideas for like 4 months already. And so I decided I would just film this video. Maybe I'll post it, maybe I won't, we will see. Is my camera crooked? I don't know. And at this point, I'm not asking for you guys to vote, at least not yet. I may do a vote later on in the year as we get closer to the end of the year and the beginning of next year. But for now, I thought I'd share just kind of what's swirling around in my head and see what feedback you guys have and go from there. So, about a month ago, the Fantastic Ladies, you guys know who the Fantastic Ladies are, right? They are a Facebook group of women, most of which I call friends of mine. And they do a lot of themed project pan ideas. They love themes and I love themes too. A lot of the projects that I do during the given year are Fantastic Ladies projects, but I also do other projects as well. This past year, their Pan That Palette theme was Let's Get Naked. And most of them chose one of the Urban Decay Naked palettes to pan, but there are people in parts of the world who don't have access to Urban Decay and they wanted to make it inclusive to anybody. And so they said any nude palette, any naked palette, any version of a naked palette, anything neutral and nude would be considered part of a Let's Get Naked palette collaboration. And so that was one of the reasons why I chose the Pure Go Nude Eye and Face palette. And I always forget to mention that in every stinking Pan That Palette update, but that was why I chose that palette, because it fit under the category of Let's Get Naked, and so I could be part of the Fantastic Ladies collaboration. Well, they've announced the theme for Pan That Palette 2019 for Fantastic Ladies is called Size Matters. And so the only requirement is that the palette we pan is 12 pans or more. Well, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do any of that. I could do my own thing. I could do whatever I want. But it just so happened that before they announced that the theme for next year was Size Matters, I already had an idea that kind of fell within that requirement. So I could easily do the theme Size Matters. I also have a ton of palettes with 12 pans or more. I have a lot. So there's plenty to choose from for Pan That Palette next year. Now that's kind of a risky deal for me because I am working on a 6-pan palette right now and I haven't finished off a single eyeshadow yet. So maybe I should say, Paula, you should probably pass on that one for next year and take it a little slower because that's not your speed. But I'm up for the challenge, and so what I've done is I've pulled some eyeshadow palettes to talk about. Obviously, I'm not going to pull out every 12 pan or larger eyeshadow palette because we would be here until tomorrow. But I wanted to share some thoughts that are running through my head with you guys and open the floor to your feedback and see what you guys thought about it. So the idea that I came up with back like at the end of March, beginning of April, that fits into the Size Matters theme was to fill up a Z palette, an empty Z palette with single depotted shadows or shadows that I bought depotted, and make my own Pan That Palette for next year. Now this is not a new idea. I've seen plenty of people do this, not only this year, but in previous years. This is not a novel concept, but it was just something I was very interested in since like April, because historically my depotted shadows have become a shadow graveyard. I have so much fun depotting them and organizing them into my Z palettes, and then I never touch them again. And I don't know why. I have done that previously, but I'm ready to change that. Those shadows are basically some of my oldest shadows that I own. They're some of my oldest and some of my newest, because I've actually bought a lot of depotted shadows from indie brands last year. So I thought it would be fun to create a palette with some of my oldest shadows that I still love and some newer ones, and just get some use out of those depotted shadows, and hopefully finish some and make some room in my palettes, because I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 magnetic palettes. That's a lot. It's probably more than most people who are not makeup artists like me should have. But I have 13 magnetic palettes, and like I said, it's been a shadow graveyard, and so I thought it would be fun to take one of these 13 Z palettes or magnetic palettes, empty it out, and then fill it up, choosing from all of those palettes a blush, a highlighter, a bronzer, a setting powder, and then a ton of eyeshadows, and that would be my Pan That palette. So that was the idea I kind of was leaning towards in April, and it is still probably the leader out of all of these options that I have. I also thought it would be really fun to film that, like show you guys how I go through and choose which shadows I'm going to use in my Pan That palette, so you could kind of see the process of me creating my Pan That palette for next year. So I kind of like the idea of that, and that is my leading #1 idea for Pan That palette next year. But there are still some contenders that deserve consideration, so let's get into those. 2 palettes that I've had in projects all year long but have not gotten a whole lot of love, despite the fact that 1, they're excellent palettes, and 2, I should be using and enjoying them, are the Smashbox Masterclass from, I believe, 3 years ago. I think in the last video that I talked about this, I said it was 2 years ago, but I actually think it was 3 years ago. I passed on the Masterclass palette that had the color correctors in it because I knew I would never use those color correctors. So I didn't buy that one. I think this one was from 3 years ago. I passed on the one from 2 years ago, and then I'm going to talk about the one from last year in a minute. But this is, I've shown this to you guys before, but this is it. That's the whole palette. There's definitely more than 12 shadows. It's huge. These are excellent quality shadows, and I love them. I love the colors. And there's also, these are, you know, they're labeled cheek products, but I would use them interchangeably on my eyes or my cheeks. This one's a highlighter down here. So yeah, this is definitely a contender for next year. Another palette that I've had in a project all year long and have just not been showing any love to, despite the fact that it's been in a project, is my Natasha Denona 28 Green Brown palette. I love this palette, but I'm not using it. I don't know if it's because I'm hoarding it, like it's too good to use. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I don't want to use it up, but definitely watching my friend Stephanie, she's known as Daisy Girly, watching her pan her Lila palette over this year has been very inspiring and really makes me think that I should consider panning this for next year. There's 28 shadows. These pans are huge. There's no way I could get through the whole palette in a year. I'm just saying that right now. But to make this my main focus of the year makes a lot of sense, and it's something I am definitely considering. This is probably my #2 plan. It's the like custom made Z palette, and then I think about this one. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I pan this? I don't know. What if I actually finished it? I would just go out and rebuy it. That would be crazy. Okay. The next one I want to talk about is the Smashbox Masterclass from last year. And you say, well, Paula, you have the Masterclass from 3 years ago. Why would you pan the one from last year before you pan the one from 3 years ago? Well, there's a reason. These are all powder products. Every eyeshadow or cheek product in this palette is powder. This Smashbox Masterclass palette from last year actually came with an entire row of cream products. By the way, I've never used this even once. Not even once. I've never used this at all. None of this. So this one is really cool. Emily Noel 83 totally convinced me to buy this, and even though I've never used it, I really don't have any regrets, which is kind of silly, but these can all be taken out. Let me take them all out for you guys. And then this is an empty palette. which makes this ideal for travel. I don't travel, so that is irrelevant. I really don't go anywhere, and if I did, I would probably bring like a Maybelline color tattoo or something and just call it a day. I probably wouldn't be worrying about eyeshadow palettes at all. But if you travel a lot, this might be really good for you because you have this once you take it out. This is the eyeshadow palette section. These are the transformers that can be used for your face or your eyes to kind of change and manipulate these original eyeshadow powders. And then here's the contour and cheek palette. And then here's the lipstick palette, and obviously all of these are cream. I don't even know how to open these, guys. That is sad. Oh, here we go. Got it. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lip products that are untouched. And that's a little bit embarrassing. I bought this a year ago, and I've never used it once. But as you guys know, cream products go bad faster than powder products. These still smell wonderful, but if I'm going to use these, I should consider doing that sooner rather than later, which is why I am definitely considering this Masterclass palette from last year for my Pan That palette. Hi guys, it's Paula. It is 2 days after the majority of this video has been filmed, and I realized I totally forgot to mention one palette, and it was so important that I had to jump on here while I'm editing and mention it. I'm about to go get my hair done. I cannot wait. But anyways, the last palette that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the Morphe x Jaclyn Hill palette. I still have never used this even once, but I am definitely considering this one as a contender for Pan That Palette 2019. There you go. I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much. Bye. There is one more palette that I wanted to mention before I wrap up this video. Like I said, there are probably, I don't know, 50, 12 pan or more eyeshadow palettes back there that I could talk about, but really they're not contenders for Pan That Palette next year for one reason or the other. These are the main contenders, so that's why I'm talking about them. But the last one I wanted to talk about is kind of, well, it's the e.l.f. 100 pan palette. This would definitely be a great palette for the theme of size matters, because this is my only 100 pan palette, and I don't have any palettes bigger than this. So if size matters, then this is the biggest size. And as you guys know, I've been working on this in various projects over the past few months, and I have, oh, the cover just came off. Great. I have hit pan in 2 of the shades already. This one right here, that pink one, and this kind of rose gold, let's call it, one down there. So because I've been talking about this over the last couple months in different project updates, I wanted to mention this because this would seem like a likely contender for Pan That Palette, but I can tell you that it's not. And the reason it isn't is because the quality on these is not the best. And it's one thing to use a shadow here or a shadow there, or to mix it in with other good performing shadows as like a supporting shadow, but I don't think I would enjoy panning this. Regardless of which one of these options I choose for next year, assuming that I choose one of these options, it has to be something that I love to work with, because it is really going to be the only eyeshadow products that I use all year long. And I don't think I would be happy panning this. I will continue to work on one shadow at a time. I would like to hit pan on a lot of shadows in this palette before I call it done, but I don't want to pan this whole palette, at least not next year. I know that for a fact. But, you know, I wanted to bring it up because this has been featured in a lot of videos that I've had lately, so I didn't want it to go ignored, but I know for a fact that I do not want to pan this palette next year, at least not right now. So that is ruled out, but The ones that I'm seriously debating, and obviously anything can change over the next 5.5 months. I have plenty of time to kind of continue to stew about this and think it over, but I thought I would just share this with you. Maybe you guys are interested to see kind of what the process is that I go through when I'm planning these things, and you know, how far ahead I'm looking. I started back at the end of March. I was 3 months into my current Pan That palette when I was thinking about what I was gonna pan for 2019. So that's kind of how it works. I know a lot of panners are the same way. Not all of them. Probably there's some that are like, I'm not gonna think about that until December 25th. But I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I know I'm not the only one. But the main ones that I am, can you guys hear my dog barking in the yard? She is driving me nuts. The main palettes for Pan That Palette 2019 would be filling up one of these Z palettes full. This is so heavy, guys. This must weigh like 25 pounds. Full of depotted single eyeshadows and making that my Pan That Palette 2019. Or the Smashbox Masterclass palette from 3 years ago. The Smashbox Masterclass palette from last year. And then finally, last but not least, the Natasha Denona 28 Green Brown palette. Right here. This palette has been seriously underutilized. I have not personally experienced this, but I've had several people mention to me on Instagram that these shadows do not maintain the same level of quality from year to year, and that they go downhill quickly. I mean, like, I'll use eyeshadows from 15 years ago. I don't care. They're still good. If they're still good, they're still good. I don't care how old they are. But I've heard many people say that this does go bad. I've personally not experienced that, but that is always in the back of my mind about this palette. I would surely hate to have $240 go down the toilet because I was panning some old eyeshadow palette. And I know a lot of you guys agree with me. You guys have all told me that before. So that is definitely why this palette is a contender. I did buy this at a Sephora VIB sale, by the way, so I did pay 20% less than the retail price, but it's still a lot of money. So those are all of my thoughts for Pan That Palette 2019. I'm gonna let this all marinate. I'm gonna consider all of your feedback that you guys will give me, because you guys always have helpful advice. And at some point down the road, in a few months, I will be back to let you guys know what the final decision is, and you know, we'll start planning 2019. I'm ready. I'm already ready for 2019. I have a lot of work to do for 2018, but I'm ready. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.